The story begins in the white-hot aftermath of the Bee Gees' world-conquering success in the late 1970s. Having soundtracked the disco era and become, for a time, the biggest band on the planet, Barry Gibb was, in his own words, burned out. It was at this precise moment that a call came through that would change the trajectory of his career. Barbra Streisand wanted him to write and produce her next album. "You have to understand the context," Barry explains, leaning forward. "The Bee Gees were at this insane peak. It was a whirlwind. And then you get a call saying Barbra Streisand wants to work with you. It wasn't just an honor, it was a terrifying prospect. She was, and is, Barbra. A perfectionist. The ultimate artist. And I was this kid from Manchester, essentially, who'd gotten lucky with a few disco tunes." The few disco tunes were, of course, a monumental understatement, but it highlights the imposter syndrome Gibb felt. Streisand, the EGOT-winning superstar with a voice of unparalleled power and control, represented a different echelon of artistry, one rooted in Broadway and classic pop, far removed from the pulsating rhythms of "Stayin' Alive." Gibb admits he almost turned it down. "I thought, what could I possibly offer her? She's going to eat me alive." My manager at the time told me I was mad to even consider saying no. So, with my knees knocking, I said yes. The first meeting, a collision of two worlds. The first meeting was arranged in Los Angeles. Gibb recalls the scene with cinematic detail. "I walked into this room, and there she was. Smaller than you'd think, but with a presence that filled the entire space. She was sharp, funny, and direct. No small talk. She just looked at me and said, 'So, what are we going to do?' What followed was, in Barry's words, a collision of two worlds. He had arrived with a handful of demos, rough ideas recorded on a cassette. One of them was a song he had originally titled Woman. I played her this very simple version, just me and a guitar. It had the chorus, guilty, too proud to say, and I saw her eyes light up. She got it immediately. She heard the potential, the drama in it. That was the moment I knew we could actually do this. That was the birth of a guilty, duh. The collaboration, however, was not without its creative friction, a fact Barry now discusses with affection and respect. Streisand was famously hands-on, a micromanager of her own sound. Gibb, used to the fraternal, almost telepathic shorthand of the Bee Gees, was navigating a new dynamic. "She has an opinion on everything," he says, a wry smile playing on his lips. "And I mean everything. The phrasing of a single syllable, the inflection on a word, the way a string section should swell. At first, it was intimidating. I'd suggest something, and she'd have 5 reasons why it should be done another way. There were moments in the studio where I'd step out and think, my God, what have I gotten myself into?" But beneath the surface tension, a deep mutual respect was forming. Gibb began to see that Streisand's perfectionism wasn't ego, it was a profound commitment to her art. "I learned more about vocal performance in those few months with Barbra than in my entire career up to that point," he confesses. "She approaches a song like an actress. She doesn't just sing the words, she lives them. She finds the character, the story. It was a masterclass." The centerpiece of the album was to be a duet. Gibb wrote "What Kind of Fool" specifically for their two voices, envisioning a dramatic, heart-wrenching dialogue. Recording it, however, became the ultimate test of their partnership. "We recorded our vocals together, in the same booth, which is rare," Barry recalls. "You feed off each other's energy. But singing with Barbra, it's like playing tennis with a champion. You have to be on your game. She would hit a note with such power and emotion, and I'd have to respond in kind. It was exhilarating and utterly draining." It was during these sessions that a genuine friendship began to blossom. The long, intense hours in the studio gave way to late-night conversations. They discovered a shared self-deprecating humor and a similar background of rising from humble beginnings to unimaginable fame. "We'd talk for hours after everyone else had gone home," Barry says, his voice softening. "She's incredibly vulnerable beneath that tough exterior. She'd talk about her fears, her insecurities about her career, her family. And I'd talk about my brothers, the pressure we were under, the loss of our younger brother Andy. We found a common ground in our shared madness. We were two people who understood the unique absurdity of the lives we were living." When Guilty was released, it became a global phenomenon. The title track and Woman in Love, which Streisand initially disliked, a fact Barry reveals with a chuckle, became era-defining hits. Suddenly, Barry Gibb and Barbra Streisand were one of the most famous musical pairings in the world. The public and the press were captivated, and rumors of a romantic relationship began to swirl. For the first time, Barry addresses these rumors head-on. "Of course there was a connection, a very deep one," he says, choosing his words carefully. "When you create something that is intimate with someone, when you're pouring that much emotion into your work, lines can blur. There was love there, absolutely. It was a creative love, an intense, passionate friendship. But we were both with other people. I loved my wife, Linda, deeply. Barbra had her own life. The romance was for the music. We channeled everything into those songs. In another time, another place, who knows? But not in this one. He describes the subsequent tour and public appearances as a surreal dream. We'd be on stage, singing Guilty, and the audience would just project this fantasy onto us. They wanted us to be in love. And in that 3-minute song, we were. But then the song would end, and we'd go back to being Barry and Barbra, two colleagues who had shared something extraordinary but were committed to their own paths. The partnership was rekindled over 2 decades later for 2005's Guilty Pleasures, titled Guilty 2 in the UK. The experience was different, Barry reflects. They were older, wiser, and the frantic energy of their first collaboration had mellowed into a comfortable, assured creative rhythm. It was like seeing an old, dear friend, he says. All the tension was gone. We knew how to work with each other. We trusted each other implicitly. It was pure joy. We'd laugh about the old days, about how we used to butt heads. There was a piece about it that wasn't there the first time around. The intervening years had also brought profound loss for Barry, with the passing of his brothers and musical partners, Maurice and Robin. He speaks movingly about how Streisand was a pillar of support during those dark times. She was there for me. She understood loss. She knew what it was like to have your identity tied to your work and your family. She'd call, just to check in. She has a fierce loyalty to those she cares about. So, what is the final, definitive word from Barry Gibb on Barbra Streisand, nearly 45 years after they first met in a Los Angeles studio? She is the most brilliant artist I have ever worked with, he states, without a hint of hesitation. A force of nature. Stubborn, magnificent, hilarious, and deeply kind. Our collaboration was one of the great adventures of my life. It pushed me to places I didn't know I could go as a songwriter and a producer. He dismisses the notion that he gave Streisand a contemporary sound. That's not it at all. I didn't give her anything. We met in the middle. I brought my sense of melody and rhythm, and she brought her unparalleled artistry and drama. We created a third thing, a Gibb-Streisand sound that neither of us could have created alone. It was alchemy. As our conversation draws to a close, Barry Gibb looks out the window, a man at peace with his past and the relationships that have defined it. The 79-year-old legend, having finally opened up, seems lighter, as if sharing the weight of this cherished memory has been a catharsis. The story of Barry and Barbra is more than a tale of hit records and Grammy Awards. It is a story of two titans from different worlds who found, in each other, a perfect, if unlikely, harmonic counterpart. It was a partnership built on friction, forged in mutual respect, and immortalized in song. And now, with the gracious clarity that only time can provide, Barry Gibb has given us the final, heartfelt verse.